Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Backstage with Angelo. Tonight, I'm with someone who is very close to my heart, someone that I know from a long time ago. She's a queen. She's gone to a lot of pageants. Like, she's been in pageantry for a long time, and I told her I'm moving in with her because of her beautiful new apartment. It's actually not an apartment; it's a penthouse. It's like a mansion in a building. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mercy Maddox. Hey. Thank you for being here with me, girl. How are you doing?
Having me. Thank you for having me. I'm doing wonderful, and I'm very excited to do this interview and answer all your questions and everything like that.
I'm very. You know what? What's that?
Oh, I said it's good to see you as always.
Me too. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's been a while. I think last time we met was almost 2 years ago. Oh, not 2 years ago, but yeah, like in 2019.
2019, that workshop, the modeling one, or the etiquette one, that was really good.
Exactly, yeah. That was the last time we talked, and I'm very happy to have you here. Mercy, when I was going through my notes about the interview, and I was like getting ready for 6 p.m. today, I was thinking, you know what? So this song came to my mind, like Mercy, 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 oh the buzzing, so that was a song from the 90s. Have you ever heard it?
No, I've heard people like say that to me, like when they talk to me, and I'm like, I don't know what that song is. Is that a song? I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it was very famous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was in the 90s. It's by Diana King. I just can't get it out of my head right now. It's like I've been singing it over and over. I'm like, okay, this is going out of control. So, yeah, you probably heard that at school, maybe.
Mm-hmm. I gotta look that up.
Yeah, that means only one thing: that you're very young and that I am too old.
Oh my gosh.
That's what it means. It's the only meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Mercy, yeah, we were basically talking like backstage of the backstage, about family and basically about your dad. I know that you're half Mozambican and half Filipino, right?
Yeah.
So who went where and how did they meet? How did your parents meet? Want to talk about it a little bit? I'm curious.
Interesting. It's so interesting because I'm like, okay, so my dad is born and raised in Mozambique, in Kenya, and all these places. And then my mom is from Philippines, immigrated to Singapore to work as a nanny, and then came to Canada. And after my dad went to Victoria first, and then somehow he met, like, I guess a missionary troop or something, and then it was of a certain religion that he wasn't. But he's like, oh, they're really nice though. And there was a Filipino lady that had approached him, and he's like, oh, she's like, oh, there's better jobs that I can get you up north in Northwest Territories. And so my dad's like, yeah, sure, I'll go. So we went from Victoria to Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. And my mom was there because there was like the beginnings of a huge Filipino community happening there. And she knew some Filipinos and they knew each other. So then at this function, I guess my mom and my dad met, and then they hit it off. And like within a year, like had my sister got married and everything. So I'm like, so weird. Of all places.
That is very interesting because they were in two places that are so far from each other, even from Canada. Like, yeah. And I was curious how they got here because I understand you were born in the Northwest Territories, right?
So I was raised mostly with the Filipino influences in my life. I don't know much about African or Black culture and everything like that. It's been always like a challenge for me growing up. But I've been heavily around all these different Asian cultures. So mostly we have like the classic Filipino food like pancit canton and lumpia, which is like egg rolls and noodles. And yeah, for the most part, just that pork barbecue on a skewer kind of thing. Those are some classic Filipino dishes. Just all
Where's
that.
me hungry?
Yeah. I mean,
But I did ask the question.
back then we were really like poor, so we were very limited on the stuff that we could have. So because I both had immigrant parents coming from poor countries, and I think like we try the best to like get like little things from the grocery store, a lot of like no name brand, like hey, here you go, or Spam, or just little things like that. And then I remember one Christmas, like the perfect way to put it would be like my sister and I opened up a box, and it was a box of Cheerios, and we were so excited because we were like, oh my gosh, we get like a familiar cereal. And
We know this.
no, open the box, and it was like some socks, and we were like,
Oh
so
my
sad.
god. They played with your feelings.
Yeah.
Not fair.
I'm like, where did you get the box of Cheerios then? We don't want the Cheerios.
So it's you and another sister, right?
Yeah, I have an older sister and a younger brother.
Okay. So you're kind of in the middle. Okay,
I'm the child, yeah.
that's good. Now in languages, do you speak any Filipino at all?
So I taught myself. My mom didn't really take a lot of time to teach me. Like other Filipino families, usually they'll put the effort. I mean, I knew some words because my mom would just use some certain words. And then I thought for the longest time that was just the word. And when I was young enough to not get a concept of languages, I remember like up until the 3rd grade, I was saying certain things. I'm like, oh, like this thing. And my friend was like, what is that word? And I'm like, I don't know, the thing that you put on your head and stuff. She's just like, no, it's called like that. And I'm like, oh. I'm like, I realized that there was like certain words that I was saying in Filipino, and they weren't, and it wasn't English, and I just didn't process that. So that was interesting, but I taught myself Tagalog. I got really into languages in middle school, like just learning all the languages I could. I was in English and French immersion. And then around like when I was 11 in 5th grade, I would hang out at the library and just read up all these language books. So I taught myself Tagalog. And then I went up to my mom and I was like, hey, I taught myself a lot of Tagalog. And she was like, I speak Visaya, which is a different dialect in the Philippines. She's like, forget about all the Tagalog. I'm like, okay.
Oh my god. Star from zero.
Yeah, it's more like now, because I was so busy with school, I forgot a lot of the languages I learned, because at one point I was practicing 7 languages at once. And then I'll like still retain some things, and it's mostly like by environment. So if I have a bunch of friends or I'm in the country that speaks that language, then it will come back to me after a while of being around it. But then like I can't just like pull it out of my hat kind of thing, like on the go sometimes.
Yeah, it's a different skill, right? Like there's communicational skills like of 2 kinds, and there's production skills of 2 kinds. So I get it. I definitely get it. At least you tried. At least you were exposed to it a little bit. It's enriching. So
yeah, it's a unique thing to have and like tell people and discuss. Like that's definitely helped me in pageants for sure. They'd be like, "Oh, what's your special skills?" I'm like, "Oh, well, this thing was a thing at some point. I could speak all these languages."
And it's useful at some point. Mm-hmm. Especially because you meet other girls from many other countries, many other cultures, and having, a language component is always something good to have to, a communication level.
Well, at the Miss World International pageant, there was Miss Japan, and then we became like best friends, and we were able, and I was so like nervous because I'm like, she's so tall and she's so beautiful, and I'm like, hey. And then I introduced myself in Japanese, and she's like, oh my gosh, you know a little Japanese? I'm like, yeah. And after that, we started bonding through that, and like would speak a little bit there, and it was really nice. Like that's where it kind of played, like meeting all these new people from all over the world.
It was a good start, I guess, into getting to meet other people. Now, Mercy, you were born in the Northwest Territories. How is that you came to Calgary? Like, any specific reason? More opportunity?
So I wasn't quite sure, because I think we came here when I was about 9 years old, and I didn't learn until recently that it was because of just like personal issues with like being in up north. I could be at least a little bit candid about this without revealing too much, but there was some circumstances, and people all know each other, like it's a city, but it's also like really tight knit and small in a way. And people just get like really weird and like jealous and like so then my parents were like, we just gotta leave, and go somewhere else. And then my parents had some friends in Alberta in the area, so then we chose here, and it was the beginning of that journey, which I never imagined I would ever move anywhere.
And you make Calgary home, so that was great.
Well, like for kids in Yellowknife, because there's nothing to do there, and like when you look at things, it's always like, oh, concerts and things happen in Calgary and Edmonton and Ontario or Vancouver, Toronto, but never like Northwest Territories. So then I would look at that, and me and my friends back when I was younger would be like, oh my gosh, like Alberta and everything outside of Northwest Territories is like the Hollywood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot to say. I mean, wow. But you know what? I was telling Marcy before we started, because it was backstage at the backstage, you know that? I was telling her because she moved into a huge, as I said, it's a mansion in a building, and it's a beautiful penthouse. She's probably showing it right now. It's huge. And I told, what's that?
My YouTube video on it. Maybe link it in the description or something. I have a penthouse tour that I posted on my channel.
I can add the link. I can do it.
Okay,
But promise that many people are gonna want to move in with you. I already told her I'm moving in with her. Anytime I show up with my luggage and hey girl, I'm living here from now on. It's a really beautiful place. Is that downtown, right?
Yeah, the Saddle Dome is right there. If you could see it by the red lights and everything. Calgary Tower's over there, but I can't see it from my side. Yeah, it's downtown Calgary, and I couldn't imagine a better place. I didn't know that this would be the spot because I've been living at a dorm for so long, especially at Mount Royal. And then now it's like, cool, I'm in the heart of the city. Mount Royal is quite far away from things or inconvenient to get to things. So it's a lot easier here being around, like when someone wants a photo shoot with me, it's like, oh, I'm right here 5 minutes away instead of like, give me like 30 minutes or 20, you know?
You don't need a car. You're in the middle of everywhere, like close to so many places. Well, that's very, very good. Now, Mercy, I know that you just finished your degree, right? Basically, it's bachelor's in
information design. Yeah,
right.
that's communication, major is information design, and then with some marketing in my minor.
So because I want to know, I probably made this question to one of the girls that I've been interviewing recently, and it's, you do that, you do modeling, you do pageants. What's the formula for the 26-hour day? Like, how do you do to do the pageants? Because I know you've been very active in pageantry. Since I know you, I saw you in Edmonton in 2014, and you were already active. It was like, I like that girl. And
started 2015, yeah, and then 2014 is when you saw me. Yeah.
Okay, so you started 1 year before that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's a long.
Yeah, long career. Stop with competitions every year. So, and being a title holder every year so that's 8 years. This is my 8th year, I think. Yeah.
Come on, girl. Come on.
I'm ready to retire, but they gave me 1 more year because of COVID stuff happening. We can get into that.
No, I'm just saying, give opportunities to other girls. Come on. Just let
I've
them
done enough. I've done myself. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I know you're very passionate about it, like as many girls that I've interviewed, as myself, that we're so passionate about this. And I guess the more you can do it, the better, and it makes you feel so fulfilled. But I can ask, how is that you got into pageants?
Okay, so
like how did they discover you?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So what happened was, I remember, I forgot. I know that I watched Miss Universe every now and then, but for some reason, I always it's Miss Universe. This country's from everywhere. But I always kept thinking that it's like, oh, we don't have pageants in Canada. Like, it just, I don't know. How do people become Miss Universe in Canada? I don't know. But then I remember a girl in my middle school entered a pageant called Miss Teen Canada World. And then I was like, this is when I was 14 when I heard about that. So that's not when I started, but I was like, oh, there are pageants in Canada. And then I kind of just like left that alone because I didn't understand how it worked or anything like that. Just intimidated. I was still a bit shy and nervous to go out on my own. But then when I was 17, I came to like this one point where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be 18 next year. I'm going to be a legal adult. I haven't experienced much in this life yet. Because my parents were very strict, so I stayed at home a lot. And I was like, oh man, I want to try new things. I want to do more stuff. I want new experiences. Maybe I can get my parents to let me do this thing. And after that, I can just live life more. I could meet new people. I could gain new skills. I was still like pretty shy to talk to people. I wasn't as outspoken as I am now, I would say. And then I decided to look up that pageant, and after that, I think it was like 3 months before the pageant, I was like, oh man, it's gonna happen soon. It's happening in January. It's now October or November. And I sent every step of that application process. I was just like, I'm not gonna get in. They're not gonna choose me. Why would they choose me? I suck. Like I remember thinking so low of myself, and that I will always remember because now I look at every risk-taking experience as like, remember how unconfident you were about that and you kept making it and making it and making it. Like take that chance, and it changed my life. So I eventually like was accepted. I had like a submission. It was an online submission form first. Then after they did a Skype interview. And then I got a phone call, and then for another interview, so there's 3 rounds. And then after they sent an email, and it was just, I remember opening it and thinking like, oh, I'm not gonna get it. Like just brace yourself for the disappointment reading through. It's like, thank you for your interest and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh man, I'm not gonna get it. And it's like, congratulations, you get to go to the competition. We'll send you a whole package soon on like what to expect and blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh my gosh. And so I scrambled because I wasn't very in touch with my feminine side or style or anything like that. I was kind of like just a hot mess. I've been a hot mess for many years now. And went to my first competition. I strictly went into it as like, this is just a one-time thing. I also tried some theater acting around that time and a lot of volunteerism. And so I was like, okay, I'll do this pageant once, and then after that, I'll just meet some new people, gain some new skills, and then move on. But then the year after, you saw me at that other pageant for Miss Teen Philippines of the World, and then after that, it was just like that, where I kept getting offers. They called me saying like, hey, we want you to do our pageant and stuff. Would you be interested? And I remember for that one, it was maybe 3 weeks before I was about to start university, and I was like, I don't know if I have time to do this, but yeah, sure. You know what? You asked me to come to your pageant, I'll go. And I went, and I had an amazing experience, and I was like, oh wow, I'm doing really good. I got a lot of good training out of this, even if it was super rushed. And I was like, oh, I love this. Like I would love to do this more. But then I didn't have to do much. There would be time after time, there would be directors that would call me and be like, hey, we really want to do your pageant. Want you to do a pageant. And then there was so many times that I was like, okay, I'm going to retire this year. I'm going to retire the pageant life. I'm good. Like it's still like I'm in love with it. I wasn't tired of it or anything, but I was just like, I'm not looking anyway. Like I think I'm okay. But then after that, I kept getting call after call. So that's why for the past 8 years, I've been
nonstop.
Yeah.
Because I've seen you every year with a different girl. I'm like, hey, you know what? I think Mercy just got another title, which is amazing because you're also inspiring many other women in Canada and probably around the world, right? Now I want to talk about that. Let's start with the beginning, because you went to Miss Teen World Canada, right? Yeah. Then you went to Miss Teen Philippines of the World.
And that was Miss Universe. Because whoever won that was going to be Miss Teen Universe Philippines, and then go to Miss Teen Universe.
Did you ever go?
Well, no, I got third place. I got second runner-up. So, and I wasn't expecting that. I was just like, I'm just here having fun, chilling. I'm not even gonna because last time I tried, but then this time I was sort of more laid back. But then when they called my name, I just didn't expect it. Again, it was like a little bit of like, no, I'm not gonna. I'm just having fun. And then they're like, oh, Mercy's second runner-up. I'm like, oh. Really?
I thought you should have placed higher, because I do remember that year, and I remember you were wearing a long gown. It was kind of shimmering. I think it was black and purple, kind of thing.
That's one of my best gowns, honestly. Everyone always comments on it. That's why I've used it so much.
And you should, because it's really nice. It's really beautiful.
I really think I could have done a lot better. I honestly am disappointed when I think back to that, just because, not in myself, but the system, because they prepped us for what the on-stage questions would be like. And I'm like, okay, yeah, these are all questions I can answer. And they're like, we're not going to ask you anything political. It's all good and blah, blah, blah. But then I guess they mixed up the questions with the Miss category and the teen category. All the other girls got pretty simple teen standard questions. And then for me, they're like, should they legalize marijuana? And I'm like, at that time, I didn't even know what marijuana was, really. I have no opinion on this. I don't know what it is.
You were like, can you explain what this is first? And then I can move on to respond to your question.
Oh, you could tell that I was a bit like stumbling, and I did my best to like, okay, I'm going to answer this question, kind of frame that I'm not quite sure. And I feel like that must have hurt me, that they're like, oh, you're not sure about marijuana? I'm like, I didn't know I was going to get asked about marijuana.
You were a teenager. It's really hard to know.
Yeah, I was like, well, I think smoking, we shouldn't smoke because respiratory health. And then I was like stumbling through it because I'm like, I need to give an answer at the end of the day, even if I don't know. But what can I do? They didn't prep me for that kind of question. They said nothing political, nothing involving laws and all stuff. So I was like, come on. And then the other girls got really easy questions about personality, your favorite memory. And I'm like,
what's your favorite color? They're like, in me, legalization of marijuana was WTH.
I'm like, I fumble with this and whatever.
But I still think you did very well. Remember that performance has nothing to do with final results. Like, you can still perform really well, and probably the results are not going to be what you're expecting or what many people expected. And that's exactly what happened. I was on the left-hand side when you're standing on the stage. I was on the left-hand side, and I was watching everything. I was like, well, I guess that she should have placed higher or win the pageant. But, you know, judges always have a different perspective. I've been talking about this with other girls, and it's like really hard to tell who's gonna win, because things can change last minute.
Yeah, and that's a good example of it. I mean, I don't regret it. I thought it was really funny. It's a good story to tell, and I love the people that all the girls that I met there, and after they were really nice. And I think the people that won did a great job, and they deserve to be up there just as much as like I did. So, yeah. Oh,
that's the right attitude.
Mm-hmm.
So, I remember also that in 2017, you, we talked about a pageant in Mexico.
Yeah.
And I was struggling a little bit with because you told me about the height requirements, and that's probably been one thing that's like a stigma in every pageant. And that's one thing I liked about Grand, that they never asked for height requirements, right? So I thought it was wonderful. But other pageants did, except for this one. I was like Miss Petite. So that's probably because of, you know, a different size, like a smaller size. And you know, there's many type of models. Like, there's so many types, especially right now. There's so much opportunity for everybody. How did you feel when you were asked if you wanted to represent Canada? Was it the first representation, or did you have a previous one?
Ooh, okay, so I think it was the year before I had 2 offers to represent Canada for the first time as a whole, because before I had only had local or provincial or provincial titles at the most. And I was asked to be International Junior Miss Canada, and at the time I turned it down because I was offered Miss United Nations for Canada. And then after that, the way that the director and I talked more and more and like other stuff, I was like, you know what? I don't know if they're bad or good or anything. I can't attest to that, but I just didn't feel comfortable. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be more careful. I'm gonna avoid this to get potentially scammed or anything. I just don't feel comfortable. And so I went back to IGM, and I ended up being Miss Calgary for them because they had already filled the Canada spot. But they're like, you know, we could give you like what's it called? We do have municipal titles and provincial titles, but there was a pageant, someone who I knew from the pageant world that took the provincial spot ahead of me, and I was like, oh, cool. Like, I was gonna do that, but it's like totally fine. They're like, oh, you could do it as municipal, and I'm like, oh yeah, sure, fine. You know what? I got time. I'll go. So I was Miss Calgary instead, and I'm like, I could have got the Canada one. And then Miss Canada didn't even show up for that one. That was my first Miss title too, but Miss Canada didn't show up. So it's like that title was to go, like she didn't want the title anymore and everything and just didn't show up. And I'm like,
come on.
Darn. But oh well.
Must have been a strong reason to do that.
Well, when I think about IGM, I think I'm going to do like a comprehensive review of all the pageants that I've done soon. But with IGM, I think it's really complicated at the end of the day because that was one of my worst experiences. Not because they necessarily did anything wrong, but there's just so many people there. Like they have it from children to adults. And so there's like maybe from each state because it's heavily US based too. And they had a bunch of people internationally, but everyone US based, it'd be like each state has like 5 people coming out of it, like a kid, a preteen, a teen, and like a miss and a missus or something. And so there was like maybe more than 200 people there at least. And you barely got time. People in my category for Miss, they're like, okay, let's let the teenagers do their walkthrough and let the little kids do it. And then Miss, you seen it? Sure, go back to your hotel. We didn't even get a lot of time to practice on stage or anything. So it was really like a tough experience, especially because it was televised too. They're like, you got to go quick and no practice. We're like, okay. And then not enough time to tend to all your contestants and come up with enough activities. You know, it seemed I was there for an entire week and it just felt like it fell flat. It was like the most unsocial social event because every time you saw everyone, it would be like, we only have an hour to be around each other and then we gotta split up. And it's like when you're coming from a different country, most of these girls in the States are gonna stick to the people that
when you went when you were traveling to Mexico, I'm trying to reach out to you and the first thing I remember that got me shocked because at that time we were preparing the other contestant and I had to walk out of the room and was like, no, I don't have time for this. I need to make sure that Mercy, like, where is she and what's going on in Mexico? So I walked out of the room where the other contestant was being prepared, Natalie, and I was just texting you, and then you told me that you were in the wrong hotel or something like that.
Wrong city.
Wrong city.
You did give me the right information, but they didn't because some of the girls were in that city. But then they had to have someone pick up everyone at that hotel that they asked us to be at and then drive 2 hours later. But then because when I got there, they weren't really because they had like some difficulty speaking and like some other stuff with logistics. Then it was like, hey, am I going anywhere? Am I in the right place? I'm like, hey, I talked to the people at the hotel. I'm like, I'm here for this event. Like, what's going on with that? And after they're like, oh, we don't know what you're talking about. And then I'm like frantically messaging everyone, like, what's happening? And then like pretty quickly they're like, okay, we're gonna go tomorrow. They're gonna pick you up. There's some girls in that hotel, but they'll see you tomorrow. Just relax for tonight. And luckily it wasn't like too many hours because I got there pretty late in the night anyway, or evening or afternoon. And so I was like, okay, this is just a relaxation day. And then if they'll come get me tomorrow. And that day was immediately fine after that. But I was like, for a second, I'm like, am I in the wrong city? What do you mean?
I was pretty nervous. I was like, what's going on? And then I started to write. One of the organizers was like, okay, so my girl is right there. Like, she went to the city that you guys told me you guys would be. What's going on? And then doing a little bit of translation back and forth until you told me, okay, they got me. I was like, good. Now I can keep doing what I was trying to do. And I think everything after that, was that smooth, Mercy? Was that still hard?
I would say it was pretty smooth. I enjoyed, that was one of the best experiences of my life. Like, that's going to stay with me forever. Because that last pageant at IGM really sucked. And I was like, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. And I experienced a really catty situation with other pageant queens there from Canada that I'd gone with. So I was like, I don't know who to trust anymore in pageants. That was the first time I ever felt like, this is weird. So then I was kind of hesitant, but then after that, you made me feel really comfortable and everything. And immediately, like, I was like, this has made me feel the best ever. I felt more confident than ever. Like, working with you and doing that pageant, like, has made me, really was like the pinnacle of my career, I would call it. And it jump started this just intense confidence and go-getter attitude and everything. So it was really amazing, and I can't be thankful enough for it. Honestly, everybody was great. I had one experience with one contestant, like, everybody kind of, like, when I talked to my other friends there, they're like, she's trying to sabotage you. Because she was like one of the first girls, and like they wanted her to be my translator. And she was really nice at first, but then there was a time when we all had to get up for certain events, and I had to rely on her to tell me that information because we were rooming together. And then I remember everyone in our room woke up late. And after that, she's just like, oh, it's okay. Go back to sleep. We're going to figure it out, they said, and you can go back to sleep right now. I'll wake you up if something changes and they're going to pick us up to go to this one sponsor event. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, if you want. Because we all went to bed late last night because rehearsal was like until like late at night. So I was like, okay, I'll take the extra sleep, and it's 5 a.m. I'll go back to sleep. And then I end up waking up later and nobody's around, or like when all the girls come back into the room, they're like, where were you? And after that, one of my friends pulled me aside and it's like, hey, Maria was supposed to wake up. She told when we got to the place, I said her name. Sense about it.
Oh my God.
It doesn't matter. It's the truth. I was going to say it anyway. So they're like, that's not her name. Actually, yeah, that's not her name. It's close though.
Something in between.
Yeah. But they're like, she was supposed to wake you up, but and I remember you having that conversation with her. But when we got to the place, she went up to the director and said that you didn't want to come and you didn't want to get up and you didn't want to. Like, that's not true. So I immediately told him, I'm so glad for those other girls sticking up for me and telling me. And then after, she's just like, oh no, I thought that I communicated it properly. I'm like, I don't know. I don't trust you, lady. So I stayed away from her, and I really felt like I was convinced that she was out to get me, because later on near the end, I had made friends with all these girls. And then there was a point where they're like, okay, everybody stand up. And I didn't understand the instructions fully because another girl was translating. One of the teenagers instead were translating for me because I became really close with her. And then they're like, you're supposed to get up and say who your friend is and like give acknowledgement to like who you made friends with and their highlights. And I was like, well, I made friends with her, but like I really would like to point out Nirvana and Anna. You guys are my greatest friends and blah, blah, blah. And after later, and then I sat down, gave like a huge speech. And after that, later on, like a girl like pulls me over like really quick. It's like, you're supposed to choose someone else because like I was one of the last people to go. That girl who had sabotaged me chose me in the beginning, and I was like, we haven't.
So uncomfortable.
Right away. So I just like, okay. And then the other girls, when I said my speech, they were just like, you're supposed to choose her because nobody chose her. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then they made me do another speech. Like they did all the speeches that I gave, but I was just like, thank you for translating me. I'm like, I'm not going to be super fake about it. I'll give you credit where credit is due. Thank you for translating for me and all that stuff. And I just left it at that. But it's like, I found it interesting that because she was the first to go, I was the last to go. Her being the first to go chose me. And it's like, I stopped talking to you after the first day when you tried to sabotage that thing, you know? So that's interesting. It's like that. And then, but largely it was really amazing. I have so much footage from it that I haven't got into, but I want to put up this year. That's the goal.
And I wish I could see it too.
Yeah. The only other thing that was difficult was I felt okay because you were there for me like on the phone, even though if you were over in Vietnam, you were still able to give me ample time. So that felt really nice, and I had a lot of support over there. So that was immensely like just amazing. But then the final night of the competition before getting on stage, it was just so chaotic. And then everyone that had, because I had other people's makeup artists helping me and like other stuff. So it was really nice of them too. But the final competition, obviously they're going to be tending to their team, the candidate that they came there for. And I'm like, yeah, that's totally fine. But I started to feel panic because I couldn't zip up my dress on my own. I couldn't do like that thing. And I just started crying. And then the guy's like, no, don't cry. And he helped me with my makeup and everything. I'm just like, too much. I want to help. Yeah. And
it's that hard. Like what happens backstage, like people have no idea what's going on the back of the stage, and they just see what you guys do on the front, but it's chaos on the back end. Now, Mercy, I know that you won in Miss Petite University. You won some prizes, right?
Yes, I got Best Smile and Best Model. Ooh, I feel really good about that. Those are some of the best awards I've gotten.
Of course, yes. Because basically,
the Miss Tourism like side title thing.
Okay, so it was three of them.
Yeah.
Nice. You didn't come empty-handed.
Yeah.
Prizes. That's good. Now that was the first, I would say, big experience probably internationally. But I know that back in 2018, you received another title. I think it was Miss Culture.
Culture of the World, yes. So that was in the Philippines. That was, I'm only going to say their name only for the reason of warning other people, because I know that they still try in many different ways to approach people and like kind of be suspect, I'll say. So IPEN had hired originally, like it's been a while. So he goes by Vermont is what he goes by, and I think I don't know, he changes his name. I knew him by Tito Dong because IPEN was the one IPEN is good so far. And IPEN is the one who ran the Miss Teen Philippines, and they chose Vermont to be the head of that pageant at that time, like to direct it in this area. And then he ran off and did his own thing, and he had the license for Miss Culture of the World. And yeah, he was not the greatest director. It almost shattered my perception of pageants completely. If it weren't for being able to tell my story and then having the support of everyone like you, like behind me and everything like that, I think it would have shattered me completely. I almost let it, and I was like, I never want to be near a pageant or anything again, because that was just way too harsh. There was like, I was seeing lawyers, I was considering suing him, and like all this stuff. There was so much happening, and it was really difficult for time and time again to see his name pop up, and then more people get hurt. People messaging me, like a lot of people messaged me to tell me that he did the same thing, but they want to stay quiet to preserve their careers. And I'm like, and he would threaten that kind of stuff. So it's like, you know, you'll never work in this, and like if you talk about me, or like I'll make sure that nobody believes me, stuff like that. So it's like, I can understand how everyone's afraid, but I'm like, no, if I submit to that, then he's taking over my life. He's taking something that I enjoy, and he's having control over it. I'm not going to let that happen. So.
And I know that you spoke up, you went publicly. There was a video. I just remember that the same day, probably, I think it was the same day, you just called me and you were telling me many things. I was like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, what's going on? And then I saw the videos, and I remember a lot of replies and a lot of people were messaging me too. I had no idea what was going on, and it was a very difficult situation, right? Like, how at the end, when all of this happened, do you feel at some point that it was very overwhelming and that you wanted to stop, or you felt like you wanted to go until the end with everything?
Absolutely, I had my dark moments, because around that time I started getting mysteriously like ill when I was in the Philippines, and it continued on and got progressively worse when I came back. So I kind of let some of that drama like drop off and like leave him alone, because I was dealing with health issues. And the fact that he put me down also caused me it ignited this anxiety in me that I never really had, where like now in confrontation I get really shaky, and I get like just panicked, and I can't breathe, and I'm beat up. And I've never experienced that before, but I think it was just because I was really easy on him, in all honesty. Even with that video and all the statements I put out, there was a lot, and I still have it, of evidence of things that he said to me that I didn't put out, and I really could have. And I don't know, I'm holding on to them because maybe I will, because if I hear that he hurts more people, I'm going to talk about it again. Like he's definitely tried over the years, and I'll start it up again. It's just not okay. And there was even a phone call that I recorded where there was plenty of conversations where he had verbally attacked me in so many ways. Like, I'm just patiently being like, what happened? And like, you know, I'm really hurt. And then he's just like, you're a liar. And I'm not going to stand, like, he was just vicious bullying and screaming, and I'm crying on the phone with him. There's a few videos I have kept with me. I'm like,
that must be very disturbing. Like to
Yeah, we had an in-person meeting that I went with 2 people, and he was shaking, and he's across the table from me. It looks like he's gonna like lunge at me and choke me. And so I kind of got paranoid if he was gonna try to hurt me, because it was that vicious.
Yeah, well, it's sorry.
I think I'll give a little bit more context for this video and stuff. It was just the factor that I started talking out about him because, as you know, I'm just saying this for the audience, was because he prepped me for months to go attend this pageant in the Philippines. I told him when I was going to travel. I told him when I booked the tickets. I went to the Philippines. I'm like, hey, I'm here. As he also recommended, I show up earlier to try and get training with someone in the Philippines, and I did. And get a dress in the Philippines, all this stuff. And I showed up, I was there for a month, and the pageant was at the end of the month for a week. So I was there for a long time. And when I got there, he was like, I don't remember telling you to go. I'm like, I've been messaging you this entire time, showing you proof, like my tickets and my itinerary when I was leaving. And he's like, I never told you to leave. And then that's when I found out. I decided to contact the head of the pageant right away, because I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. He's not being forthcoming. And when I contacted them, he's like, oh, we told him months ago that don't send any of your candidates to the Philippines because there's some stuff going on and we might cancel it and move it to October. And Vermont had not mentioned any of that. I'm not even going to call him Vermont. His name is also Tito Dong. His real name is Dong Kabian. So Dong, he'll go by different names to try and trick people. That's what I'm convinced of. So that he can hide his tracks better, because the more I kept digging, the more there's a long history of him trying to be tricky with people. And so I went immediately and told Dong that, like, hey, I just spoke to the head of the pageant. They told me that you weren't supposed to send me and all that stuff. And he's like, well, at first he denied it. Then he was like, yeah, they told me not to, but you shouldn't have flown anyway. Like, I don't remember telling you to fly. And I'm like, I screenshotted the messages and showed him, and he just kept denying it when there's evidence right in front of him of me saying, I'm flying this day, I'm ready to go. And then him being like, okay. So it's like, we've had this conversation, but then he turned it around immediately on me of like, how dare you talk to the head of the pageant? How dare you go behind my back and talk to them and causing trouble for me? And I'm like, I only talked to them because you wouldn't give me any information whatsoever. And like, I think that's fair of me to do. I'm in another country. Luckily, Philippines is my home as well. Luckily, I have family there. If it was somewhere else, then I would be deer in headlights, like just completely like obliterated, I think. And if I was alone, I had luckily it was the first time I had 2 people come with me abroad. And before I would just go by myself, but I was very lucky that I had one of my cousins from the Philippines and my partner at the time come with me. So if they weren't there, I did have my bouts of like depressive episodes during those days, but I was like, okay, I got to enjoy my time somewhat. So we still did other stuff, but it was, of course, because you go into a pageant preparing for months and like ready to show your sponsors this and that and that. But then it's like, oh, there's not even a competition. Like, that's heartbreaking. You know? Was
there any apology after all that? Like, good terms at the end?
There was no sincere apology. In fact, I told him how devastated I was and how I didn't want to talk to him on the phone anymore, because in the Philippines, when I did call him, he would yell at me. So I was like, this is already so upsetting on top of what has happened. I need a break from talking to you to salvage my own sanity. And I'm like, I will talk to you when I get back. And then when I flew back, I was like violently ill. So I just took a day to myself. And on the day I came back was the day that you guys had your pageant there. And then I found out that at that pageant, he tried to give my title of Miss Culture of the World to someone else. So that was when I was like, okay, I don't think there is any talking. This is when I am ready to say something, because I find out that he's trying to give someone else, and someone I actually competed with in the past, and someone I knew and like, I was like, hey, did you know this? And like, it was just really messy, and it was so dishonest and conniving. So, and also I felt really bad because I know that you two were working on this. I trusted him at that time. You trusted him. It seemed like things were fine until like all this came out, and that's when people started saying things, and it's like, oh wow. Yeah.
I'm very glad that after all what happened, you were able to, to move on. And because at some point, I know it causes a lot of stress, like mental stress. You were probably not sleeping, or um, life can be a chaos in those situations, because you want to speak up for what happened to you, and for solidarity with other people that might be going through the same situations. But on the other hand, you were taking all the consequences of speaking up, which is why many people don't.
Because he ended up doing it again, because I knew some people from that pageant that you saw him at last. I was friends with them because I had gotten to know them when I was preparing for the Miss Culture one. And they would tell me like, hey, he's sending me over here. And I'm like, it's your choice, but I wouldn't recommend it because of what happened to me. You know what happened to me. And they still went, and he did the same thing to them. Some of them arrived and then it was disorganized. They weren't at the right place. They weren't given the right opportunities and everything, and they just kept quiet about it because it's easier to keep quiet. And I understand where those girls are coming from. It's really hard. But he did this to a lot of people, and he continued after, I think like a few months after, he tried to launch his own pageant that was on the news in Philippines because the people wanted to sue him. People were very angry. People said statements that they were being starved and it wasn't run properly. Results were rigged. There was like a lot of problems that it got the attention of a famous lawyer in the Philippines who had a TV show. It was on TV in a lot of places. It just goes to show that I'm like, I was right not to trust him. And like, it felt really good that some people came to approach me and they're like, hey, I heard about this and this, and it led me to find out more and see your video, and thank you. And I avoided working with this person because of you. And like, thank God. Like, if I can prevent just one person from not having this experience. I remember one girl who had talked to me, she was in my position the year before. She was like, I am so sorry I didn't say anything earlier. I wish I did, because then it could have stopped you. I still don't want to talk out, but thank you for doing it, So it was a lot of English, but it had to happen for sure.
Sometimes it just takes one person to say something so that others can as well, right? And that basically sometimes that is the purpose. And also when you're saying something that is true, that you have evidence about, it's not libel, it's not anything. Yeah. You're not doing anything wrong, because it's a fact. So I'm very glad that you were able to move forward, and I'm also very glad that you did so well in moving past the situation, that you decided to go to another pageant.
Yeah, so I was still pretty low from the incident before, and the entire conversation that I had with the director of this pageant, I was like, she knew my story, and then we talked about it, and she's just like, I want to make sure that you're comfortable. I know that you're super hesitant and all that stuff, and I'm like, I have to take this risk, because if I end off my pageant journey there, that doesn't feel right. And if I don't take this risk with this pageant, hopefully it's the right one, but if I don't, then I feel like for the rest of my life, I'm going to be haunted by that experience with Dom. So I went, and luckily it was amazing. Like, every aspect was amazing. They treated me with such kindness. It was the best experience. They gave me everything that they promised. And there was so many people all over the world that I met. It was just, and also because I was also at my heaviest at that time because of everything that I'd gone through and the illness and everything. I felt such a stranger in my body, and like the fact that I was still able to be confident and like go through a journey of like accepting my body at any position was really nice. And then I got a lot of comments from like, because there was older women there too, women that were married and the Ms. category and all that stuff. A lot of them came up to me afterwards, and also people my age too came up to me, and they're like, when they asked us who in the interview who should win, if you don't win, I said that Mercy should, because you've been so confident. You've shown me that, like, don't care what other people think, like, just have fun and like be you. And I was like, the fact that people that were older than me and these women that were lawyers and like really successful and all that stuff, it just felt really validating and lovely to like have people recognize that in me, especially in such a short time of knowing each other. So yeah, that was it's such a lovely note to end off on.
And especially because that reinforces the fact that the pageants are not bad. That it's not like one single experience will make the whole thing, or
It
all the
doesn't.
industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it won't stigmatize the whole industry just for one person. And I'm very glad. And you won the title of Miss World
Miss
International, right?
Yeah. And also because they were filming a pitch pilot for a TV show, which they're planning to combine with like the people that they were going to have compete in 2020. But now they're postponing it to 2021 due to coronavirus. So I was going to go back to Miami as well and film more parts. And then we're going to put that into a nice pitch pilot, at least release it on maybe webisodes and stuff like that. I'll definitely keep everyone updated. And it's like, cool, sure, if it takes like this long. But I'm like, the footage is there. I can't wait to see more. I did confessionals. That was cool.
I want to see that. I want to see that when it's out there. I need to see it.
Hopefully, coronavirus gets better, and then they can.
Yeah. Yes, that is true. That's also true. Mercy, any plans for any other pageant in the near or midterm?
So I always go through every year like I want to retire this year and whatever. Pageants, I want to be a part of my life forever. And I always thought when I started to do in the very beginning of my journey that if I did this long term, my end goal would be Miss Universe. But I'm like, I've been doing this for 8 years. I've won international titles, I've traveled internationally a bunch now. Like, I definitely feel fulfilled. Like there's nothing more that I need from it. But with Miss Universe, it's like, yeah, that'd be cool. But I feel like I'm kind of good, and like I would have to compete in Canada, and I'm so used to not competing in Canada. Like I love traveling somewhere else and competing somewhere else. So it's weird, but I'm kind of picky like that with like, oh, do I want to do it? I feel like I'm just good. I'm like, I'm not going to say never, because I've played around with the idea back and forth in my head, and especially now that I have like a lot more resources to do very well. I might consider it. I don't know. But I think my mind got set on like, I want to run my own pageant eventually. I want to work behind the scenes more. I love judging. I love helping out. I love mentoring. I was like, maybe one day I can own Miss Universe Canada and I can do production, but I want to get a lot of experience behind the scenes and maybe do my own little thing in Canada or locally. Like that would be nice. Yeah. I've played around with that idea. There was a company that asked me to be a pageant consultant and plan out a pageant. And then I decided to pull away from that company and I get to retain those ideas. So I've planned out like a bunch of ideas for a pageant locally. And I'm like, maybe I will do that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the future holds in with Corona and everything like that.
And that was one of my next questions, like the following questions was Miss Universe. Has Miss Universe been in your plans in the future? So I know the organization is changing, like it's evolving on what they're looking for, right? So it's more based on women who have done lots of things in the past, who have helped contribute to community, women that are more confident, instead of focusing only on the looks, right? Which is important because it's a commercial, it's a business based on television. So has it been in your plans by any chance?
So I think I would be really open to it with a few factors in place. So before it was difficult to imagine because I was in school, but now that I've finally experienced like a few months out of school, I'm like, oh, this is so much better. I would have so much time now. I can, if I find the right agency, if I find the right manager, most importantly, or publicist to help me get out there, I think, and like run me off like in a good start, then that would really help. I think I need to take more initiatives to figure out a good team to help me promote myself, because I want to find more opportunities where I could be useful first. I want to be I have time now that I'm not in school, to be part of the community in a bigger way, to do more philanthropy or charity work or volunteerism. I really want to focus on my position in helping community before I approach Miss Universe. I just really want that team effort. I really want to build that up. And then I want to go over to that means I'm ready to be Miss Universe.
And I'm pretty sure you would do a great job. I'm pretty sure.
Thank you.
Now, Mercy, is there something that you would like to, because I know there will probably be many girls watching this interview, right? is there something that you want to tell them about the pageant world, about probably expectations or any advice that you would like to give to them? Those girls are expecting to one day start their journey in pageants.
That is a huge question. So I'll give like maybe a 3-part answer to that. First of all, I do want to talk more with people and share that message publicly about getting into pageants and starting off and all those tips and tricks. So that's what I'm planning for this new year. Now that I have this place and I have a studio upstairs, I want to
great penthouse.
I want to make more videos discussing pageants and giving all those tips and tricks and everything like that. And I also have a private coaching that I do to just like do like a pageantry 101 kind of course thing. You can find out more information on my channel, Mercy Maddox, on YouTube.
Is that the name?
Yeah, Mercy Maddox, all one word. I'll give you the link, put in the description. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be posting videos about pageantry and my experience reviewing different pageants, different drama, tea, things like that, tips.
Sometimes that is fun too. So
yeah,
you can include.
Yeah, all the fun parts. There's definitely a lot of fun parts I'll share because and all the good parts about pageantry and what it can give you. I think the message I want to leave off as a generalized one is pageants are an opportunity for so much more. I started as like the shy 17-year-old girl, not with many experiences under her belt, and it changed my life completely. Like I credit pageants for nearly 80% of where my life is now. I would say maybe even more. And going into one, just don't focus too much on pretend. Don't pretend. Don't be fake. Be yourself. Like let your inner self and your inner truth shine. And just be you and enjoy the experience. Don't just focus on competition. If you're having fun, judges are going to see that. The girls around you are going to see that. It creates such a better experience to everyone. Be like, wow, you were so fun and we all had fun. Like the energy was just great when you're in the room. That's what matters. Those memories that you create matter. Forever, I'm going to take with me all those experiences that I had. I didn't focus on competition. Yes, you do have it in a moment. But for the most part, indulge in those experiences. Just be in the moment and like, I'm learning a new language, I'm learning a new culture, I'm trying this new thing, try new things, like take that step and just have fun. And that's what will really grow your confidence. That's where I ultimately got my confidence as an adult, is just being myself, and it further reaffirmed me that this is how you'll live a good life. This is the people will see who you really are. You'll attract the right people. You'll have the good times, and you're just true to yourself the entire time. There's no better feeling.
And that's the greatest advice that one of the greatest advices that girls you will get for your pageantry journey if you plan to start it soon. Mercy, it's been so good and so great to have you here in my show. You were one of the first names that came into my mind. I was like, I wish that Mercy would be here sharing her experiences and anecdotes with us. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. And I hope that we can, continue. I can bring you again when you go to another pageant.
That I do more, and then I can bring you along with me, and then sharing that would be amazing.
That would be great. Thank you very much, Mercy. Okay, guys, thank you very much for watching. This was Angelo and our guest, Mercy Maddox. Thank you very much for watching, and see you guys on the next episode in Backstage with Angelo. Bye.
Buddy.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.